Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Picks from Joe's. Been a couple of weeks. We'll explain that in a minute. I may or may not have King and/or Poklahoma in this evening, but it's been a couple of weeks. Had a little hiccup that you guys will hear about here in a minute, but we're back online. Hopefully, not to necessarily go away. This is you'll understand in a minute. We're gonna obviously talk some football, maybe tell one bad college story as best I can remember, and talk a little bit, I guess, about why we were gone for a couple of weeks. So our last edition of Picks from Joe's, we had a pretty good time. Had all three of us on. Had King and Mike Poklahoma, as everybody knows him on Twitter. We're on. And we told we told a couple of stories, and of course, as you know, picks from Joe's, we can be a little bit off color now and again, not too crazy. And so we talked a little bit about I think Poklahoma made some comment about it might have been in either regards to Baylor or OU. He said something was an abortion, and then later on, we talked quite a bit about a story that actually was published on Every Day Should Be Saturday, one of the more successful SB Nation websites, which you're going to find ironic in a minute. We talked about a story that it was written by Spencer Hall on basically where he was someplace and ate either bad food or drank the water, and he shouldn't have, and he's shitting his pants. And it was hilarious. The story itself just is fantastic. I mean, if you just Google Spencer Hall and shitting pants, and you'll find it, and it's just it's great. He's a good writer. So we played off of that, and we told our own stories, funny or not, and that we posted Picks from Joe's, as we always do, on Cowboys Ride for Free, SB Nation site, and lo and behold, don't you know that someone at SB Nation, the higher ups, took issue with that video that we recorded and published on their site, and took the opportunity to remind those that currently run Cowboys Ride for Free that they have a standard code of I don't want to call it code of ethics necessarily, but certain standards they're trying to uphold. And, for those of you that know kind of how SB Nation kind of got going and where a lot of these college blogs came from, I mean, a lot of folks may not know the story of how Cowboys Ride for Free even came about. It was started by a group of guys, Sam Bryant being one of them. And, there's Royal John and, some of the other fellas that got it going, and they had started a website, a blog called Wasted Optimism, and you'll still see Royal John on Twitter sporting that. It's not. I think his Abby says Royal John, but the name behind it's Wasted Optimism. I don't know which one it is, but you'll see it out there on Twitter, and that got started. I think around 2010. Might have been 2000, mid 2009, maybe mid 2010, and SB Nation was just really starting to get fired up, and they were looking obviously for a blog to represent Oklahoma State. They're going around and they're trying to set up blogs to represent all of the major schools, and then there are some blogs that represent like an entire conference. Like if you've got the mid majors. Maybe you don't have a blog that supports Marshall, but you have a blog that supports their entire conference, let's say. So you've got some stuff like that. Well, SB Nation apparently approached Wasted Optimism and said, bring it on. And it was Cowboys Ride for Free. And as most of you who have been with the site a long time know, the early versions of that site were raunchy. Please, raunchy. Those that started with Picks from Joe's, I mean, Picks from Joe's was all about King going down to Eskimo Joe's, getting drunk and riding. So there was some pretty off-color stuff being written on the site. Even even as recently as the Choo Choo thing, with Clint Shelf and 2000. That was 2013, for heaven's sakes. Or 2012, whichever year it was. I mean, the Choo Choo post was definitely, NS, what do they say, NSFW or something like that, whatever that acronym is. So some pretty off-color stuff. Well, as things changed, and obviously SB Nation grew, Vox Media, which is a big deal, there obviously has influence over that, and they're trying to become a little bit, a bigger player in the online blogosphere, so to speak. And SB Nation being a part of Vox, obviously starts to fall under that umbrella. No, we're going to become more professional, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, the trick to this is that obviously you have stuff being written by Every Day Should Be Saturday, top SB Nation site. Nobody's chasing Spencer Hall down to take that post down. Okay. Even as recently as the Texas loss to Oklahoma State, you had somebody post something on Burnt Orange Nation about, was it Burnt Orange Nation, or might have been Barking Carnival, one of those two, which are both SB Nation sites, huge, successful SB Nation sites. And I think there was a comment in something about the third quarter or fourth quarter abortion that was the Texas offense or something like that. And it was at that point that, I had a communication with someone about the double standard involved. That, of course, you're going to chase down Cowboys Ride for Free for a couple of really, really, honestly, folks, very minor comments in a show that's intended to be, a little bit irreverent. And you took issue with that. But yet, you're not going to take issue with the fact that Every Day Should Be Saturday has an entire article about shitting their pants up on their site. Maybe it's older, but it's there. You're not taking it down. And you've got your, blog associated with University of Texas, which is very successful, talking about third quarter abortions, and nobody's getting excited about that. You want to throw on top of that yes, you're attempting to be professional, but just so you're aware, I took over the management of that site. It was actually, I agreed to take it over that was the week after my mother passed away. It was the week after the Mississippi State opening game, Mississippi State 2013. And I had actually had the opportunity, believe it or not, Kyle Porter had spoken to me and said, "Hey, would you like to come over to Pistols Firing and Write?" And it was right at the time that SB Nation had said, "Hey, I was actually on the phone with a couple of their guys and said, if we'd like you to come on and manage the site." I said, "Hey, what the heck? I'll give it a roll. It's for fun. It's not a big deal." And they initially offered me I think it was $75 a month. $75 a month to manage the site. I had no writers, and it was just me. There's no budget involved to pay a writer. So if you get a really good, kid who can write, sure enough, write and puts out some posts, there was minimal opportunity to pay them. And so I argued a little bit. And I think they agreed to pay me $100 a month. Okay, $100 a month to manage a blog where this is not your full-time job. I had a full-time day job, and I had a family, and $100 a month, that's not enough to get me to walk out the door. But I enjoyed writing about and being involved in the conversation about Oklahoma State, so I did it. And we did well. We got some good writers in. There's been a fair amount of turnover, but the site now is really doing well. But the challenge would be if you found somebody who was pretty good. I think for a period of time we had Mark Travis, who was very good. Even you had Thomas Fleming recently, who was a really good writer, good analyst. That's always a good thing with a blog, because we obviously don't have credentials. We're not reporting directly on anything. We're generally not interviewing folks. Although that has changed slightly of recent. But at the same time, you've got kids with talent that are looking for an opportunity. And when you say, well, I'll pay you $25 a month if you're posting as much as you are, that's nothing. So that's, really the business model. Hey, they're successful. They're doing what they're doing. But if you think about it, you're going to come bust my balls for, a slightly off color video talking about an article written on one of your most successful sites. And I'm doing this for free. I'm putting stuff on your site for free. So after a brief Twitter DM conversation, told Cowboys Ride for Free Picks from Joe's is no longer affiliated with Cowboys Ride for Free or SB Nation. So as far as long as this goes on, and whoever's on here, you can say whatever the fuck you want to say. Okay. Obviously, that ramification is only going to come back on me or whoever else is on the broadcast. So that was kind of the long way around to tell you we had a couple of weeks of a hiccup there. Don't know if I'll get Poklahoma or Brian back. They were kind of not so sure about it. But if we get them back on here, great. And who knows who else we might drag on here in the meantime. But be that as it may, we've got college football this week. Big 12's got 4 games. We got 2 teams on a bye week, West Virginia and Baylor. And I just you just shake your head at Baylor. I think Baylor, the school and the joint, the whole joint is just screwed up. I'm sorry. That whole deal is just a shit show to the nth degree. And as an institution, I mean, it's just a disaster. It's an embarrassment for the conference. And what's going to end up happening probably is nothing. What's going to probably end up happening is nothing, because they're a private university. They aren't under any obligation to disclose any more detail than was in that Pepper Hamilton thing, which who knows how much of that we actually saw. It's just a shit show of a university. And for the folks involved that are, printing T-shirts that say "Bring back Art Briles," I mean, I don't know. I just shake my head. What, on a serious note here, what the fuck are you thinking? I mean, what universe are you living in that somehow, Baylor and Art Briles are victims in this? I don't get it. And I really wish I really wish that university would go away. Go someplace else, join another conference, just go away. You bring nothing but embarrassment to what otherwise used to be a fairly, proud conference that's, scrambling to stay afloat, and who knows how much longer it will, if it stays afloat at all. Between the asinine behavior of, an institution of that, a religious private institution for that matter, and the absolute ridiculous greed and arrogance at the University of Texas with the Longhorn Network and all that bullshit that transpired, that absolutely cost what was a strong league, cost them good teams. Between those two schools, I'd say, thank you to those two schools, because you probably are, I would argue, are primarily responsible for the demise of the league. It started with Texas, and it's going to end with Baylor being just a sham. And I just shake my head. And that's enough about that. Thank God Baylor's not playing this week. They shouldn't be playing any week this year, by the way. So we've got 4 games. I'm going to start with, I'm going to go 2 games, and I'll tell a bad drink story. Uh, the by far should be the worst game of the week is noon Eastern time on Saturday. All the games are Saturday. We got we got one night game, which could be somewhat entertaining. You've got a 12 Eastern time game on ESPNU. TCU traveling to Kansas. TCU coming off a loss to OU. Kansas, God bless them. You know, they're grinding away. TCU's laying 28.5. Over under 64. You got 436 tickets available, still available on StubHub, starting for the grand total price of $9. That's where tickets start. If you're hanging out in Lawrence and got nothing better to do, $9 is all it's going to cost you on ticket on StubHub to go to that game. Hard to say what the hell's going to happen there. TCU's got to have a letdown. Kansas, I'm guessing Kansas coming off a bye week. Yeah, Kansas coming off a bye week. Obviously, probably going to be fired up. It's going to be a nice day, 70 degrees. Weather-wise, doesn't look like it's going to be a bad day for football. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? The over might be a little high. I think TCU may be a little bit of a letdown. But the line, I'm guessing TCU could cover. TCU could cover that line. I could see like a 30 to, 30. No, it'll be 30-0. I'd say maybe, you could end up with like a 40 to 10 game, something like that. I think TCU will probably come out a little slow, a little sloppy, and maybe wake up at some point. Kansas maybe even have an early. Maybe Kansas scores first, and then they kind of wake up. But that's a dud of a game. TCU obviously going to win, and if they don't, heaven forbid. Game number 2, and this is the night game, 7:00 Eastern time on ESPNU. It's a couple games on ESPNU. You got Texas Tech at Kansas State. That's a pretty intriguing game. That's a very intriguing game to me. Bill Snyder is he's the wizard, man. I mean, they lost at West Virginia, but I'm telling you what, West Virginia is lucky as hell to get out of that game with a win last week. And you watch that, and he's just a magician. When that guy's no longer at K-State, I hope they find somebody that can. You're not going to replace him, but somebody who can at least follow in his footsteps, because I like Kansas State being relevant. Personally, I would like all the Big 12 programs to be relevant. It's only better for the conference. I know some of you say, screw the conference. Conference needs to dissolve. I think you need, unless you're going to go to some kind of humongous super conference structure, I think you need the 5 Power 5 conferences. There's enough schools for it, but you'd have to dissolve into some huge super conference kind of setup where your division champions go into the championship game, which is a guaranteed spot in a playoff, and then you're going to be at 8 teams anyway for the playoff, which they should have been anyway. So who knows? Maybe it would be for the better, but as long as the Big 12 is going to be around, which is 10 teams, I would much prefer that the majority of the teams be relevant, at least on a national stage. So K-State, when Snyder making them relevant, I'm enjoying. So this is an interesting game. You've got so Texas Tech comes in 3-1, 1-0 in the conference. K-State coming in 2-2, 0-1 in the conference in Manhattan. K-State is giving Texas Tech 8 points. All right, K-State is an 8-point favorite. Okay, over under is only 68. Man, well, let's put it this way. I wouldn't touch K-State and 8 points against Tech for nothing. I would be all over Texas Tech in this game because I think in that moment it's definitely toss-up material. On the road, Texas Tech could win this game outright. I don't think K-State, if K-State's going to win this game, it ends up being like a West Virginia type game. All right, they're going to win by, a point or a field goal or something like that. Not going to win by 8 points. I'm flabbergasted at that. Over under 68. Think about that. 30, 35, 33. Okay, over unders. That's a tough call. Snyder's got good defense, and Lord knows Texas Tech's defense is a sieve. So that's kind of a tough over under, I think. That's a tough over under. I definitely would take Tech in the points all day long, but that over under I don't know about. You got 442 tickets remaining on StubHub, starting at $40. Not bad. If you happen to be in Manhattan, that's not a bad ticket for what's probably going to be a pretty entertaining football game. All right. So that's 2 games down. So let's take a little detour here. It was something that Poklahoma had wanted to, he wanted to start doing some kind of side topics here and there and picks from Joe's. And one of the ones he wanted to start with early were the worst drinks you've ever had. Okay. kind of hard to say the worst drink I've ever had. I had some pretty bad drinks when I went back to college. I was at Oklahoma State for 80 and 81. For 80 and then fall of 81 before I left. And I worked for a couple of years, lived in Tulsa, and then went back to college, went to Dodge City Community College for 2 years. And while I was there, I played on the golf team there, and there was a guy who ran a local bar called Stonewalls. And he was particularly fond of the golfers. He was a golfer himself, probably a bogey golfer, probably like a 20 handicap type of a guy. And he was fond of the golf guys. And so we usually, if we wanted, we could get a job there bartending, make a little money while you're in school. Well, because I had been out of school a couple of years and went back, I was older and in Kansas at that time. And of course, I don't know what the drinking age stuff in Kansas is now. But at that time, it was split. So at 18, you could have 3.2 alcohol. And if you were 21, you could have hard liquor and higher alcohol content beer. And so the guy who ran Stonewalls, it used to just be a balcony and a downstairs, and it was all 18. And then while I was there, he put in underneath one of the balconies a very small area that was blocked off and had a door. You had kind of a bouncer person at the door, and had a separate bar in there, and that was the 21 bar. Well, I was old enough to work in the 21 bar, and in the 21 bar, you made tips. All right, and for a young dude running around a junior college with cash in his pocket, you were popular. So we used to go. There was one of couple truck stops in town that we'd close the bar up at night and go have breakfast at like 2 o'clock in the morning at the truck stop. And every now and again, if I had a really good night and I felt like I had a little extra cash, I'd buy everybody breakfast. So I was big man on campus there for that time. But the other thing was that when you were learning to bartend, the rule was you had to drink your mistakes. So, oh my God. And I wasn't a liquor drinker by any means. I was a beer guy, wasn't into whiskey or bourbon or, bourbon and Coke, Jack and Coke, anything like that. And that wasn't that so much of you screw up a Jack and Coke, okay, I'd slip a little extra Coke or something and you could tolerate it. But we were making, White Russians and, this and that and the other thing. This was before, mixed drinks, kind of the cocktail type of culture had really done anything. So they were usually pretty, White Russian. I can't remember other stuff, but they were fairly straightforward mixed drinks. We had a little card file that we could pull it out and what we need to put in it. And if you messed it up, some of those could be pretty foul. So I'd say those were some of the worst drinks I ever had. I'll detour then and go back. My worst drink experience was at Oklahoma State. I was on the 13th floor of Wilhelm South, which is no longer there. And the 13th floor, it was, as some dorm floors could be, had really, it was a pseudo fraternity. I mean, we were, we had an identity. We were called the Dirt Babies, which was, some kind of a play on, ag econ majors or something like that. We even had the Caddyshack had come out. We had shirts with the gopher on the shirt, saying, we're all right or something. I mean, it was Animal House. It was Animal House. Well, they had, I think this was the first, I will say this, one of the nice things they did before I go on to that, is for Halloween, they would rent the reel-to-reels. This is back in, you're talking fall of 1980. They'd rent the reel-to-reels of Rocky Horror Picture Show. So anybody listening and you remember back to those days, Buck, you're out there, Ed, Chris, all you guys, Dave, we rent the reel-to-reel, set it up in the mezzanine between Wilhelm North and Wilhelm South, and charge, I don't know what it was, 50 cents, $1, to come up and watch. And people would they might dress up a little bit, but they'd all come prepared with the props, the newspapers, the water bottles, the tissue paper, the whole 9 yards. And we'd drag all of our stereo systems down. Now, this is back in the time when the speakers, big speakers were really a big thing. We're blasting like Loverboy and Kansas and stuff like that on the dorm floor. So we'd bring all of our speakers down. Guys would wire this stuff up. We'd have the reel-to-reel projector, throw it up on the wall, and we'd do 2 shows the first night, and then the night of Halloween do 3 shows. So with the last show being at midnight. And we'd raise money, and we'd use that money to dress up our lounge on the floor. We bought a pool table, a couch, microwave, small refrigerator. It was quite the deal. So anyway, it was later that year, might have been that next spring. I frankly don't remember the exact time of it, but a couple of guys decided to have what they affectionately referred to as a Mai Tai party. And so here we go. They just had a blender set up in their room, and they're just mixing these things and giving everybody Mai Tais all night. Well, I somehow had found my way to a seat next to the blender. And my cup's right there next to the blender, sitting right next to the blender. And of course, every time they made a mix, they'd come back with just a tiny bit left in the bottom of the jug, and they'd pour whatever was left into my glass. So my glass was constantly full all night. And what I'm about to tell you was recounted to me because I don't personally remember myself. So when the whole thing kind of wound down and they decided to, kind of clean up, that's it. Everybody's hammered. They're passed out everywhere. So they gather me up. I'm still in their room, and I'm sloppy drunk. And so they gather me up, and I'm mumbling whatever, and they drag me over to my room, which was down the hallway across the elevator landing, and just on the other side of the elevator landing. I was unfortunately right next to the RA's room, right next to Ed's room. So they stuffed me in my room. Chris was my roommate, Chris Cuba. If anybody here knows him out there, you can say hi. Chris is my roommate. They throw me in my room, shut the door, and then they saunter back around to go back to their room. And when they walk back into their room, there I am, laying back on one of their beds. How I got there, I must have gotten up and walked through the lounge, which would be considered to get back. I don't know how that happened. So they gathered me back up, took me back to my room, left. That was the end of them. and I didn't stay in my room. So I went, apparently got up, made my way to the lounge, and there were several guys in there. The only person whose name I remember, that I remember faces, a bunch of guys. We used to stay up late playing hearts and spades, and we'd order pizza from Domino's and whatnot. And there was a guy, Andy Andrews. He was laying on the couch. They were all in there, and they were watching. If you've never seen it, it's a great old campy, 1960s, 70s sci-fi flick called The Andromeda Strain. So I come wandering in there, and I sit down in a chair that's next to the end of the couch. So Andy Andrews is laying there on the couch. His head is next to me on the end of the couch right there. And they're watching. It's funny, I kind of remember that, actually remember this specific part of it. They're watching Andromeda Strain. It's a scene where an older woman, not necessarily a pretty woman or anything, an older woman is watching. She's supposed to be observing these tray cultures for this virus to be showing up in the tray cultures. And as it turns out, she has a form of epilepsy. So watching the tray flash in front of her, this red light is flashing, caused her to kind of not have a fit, but kind of go into this catatonic state watching. And so as you're watching this, she's obviously missing trays where they're in the cultures where there's obviously this virus is there, but she's missing it because she's kind of zoned out. So there's this very long scene where all you see is her face, just like you see my face here. And this red light is flashing in her face, and she's just kind of staring at the camera. And I start going off about how ugly she is. Oh my God, is she? Why are they staring at the camera? Oh, go away. She's so fucking ugly. Oh my God. I'm a college kid. I was 18 and a half. And I'm sloppy drunk, and I'm going on about this. And some comment was made about, she's so ugly, she makes you look pretty. And I lean over and I kiss Andy on the forehead. Okay. And that was the end of that. And I guess shortly after that, I got up and I went to my room, and that was the end of it. So obviously the next day I have no recollection of this. People are telling me the stories. I'm like, oh my God. Well, it was that next week. That was obviously probably a weekend or something like that, or the Thursday night before the weekend. The next week, so every week you have a floor. We had a floor meeting. Well, they had a tradition on this floor called Dumbass of the Week that they voted on every week. And if you got voted Dumbass of the Week, you were awarded the rock. It was a big flat piece of limestone rock, probably a foot across, so yay thick, maybe about that thick. Okay. A couple inches thick, maybe, with a rope. It's attached to a rope. So if you got awarded Dumbass of the Week, you got this rock, and you had to keep it prominently displayed in your room. And you were subject to rock checks at any time of the day or night. As long as you could get 5 people together from the floor, they had to be from the floor. You get 5 people together, you could go. This was basically licensed to go ransack the dude's room, because the whole thing, we have to check for the rock. That's where you have to have it prominently displayed. Well, you could have it sitting on your table right there as they walk in the door, and they just go right past it, and they'd toss your room, at least toss your side of the room. And okay, so at a normal hour, that's not that big of a deal, but you never got a rock check at 8 o'clock at night or at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You got rock checks at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So whoever had the rock, their neighbors hated them, and their roommate despised them. There was one guy on the floor who got the rock. His roommate had a girlfriend who lived off campus, and he went and slept like at her place. I don't know if they were necessarily sleeping. He might have been sleeping on the couch for all I know, but he stayed at her place for the entire week just to avoid this nonsense. And I think I got out of that week pretty scot-free. I may have only gotten, think I only got maybe a couple of rock checks that week. But that was, and I remember coming up the elevator the night of the floor meeting when I got voted in, and you could hear it, like, as you got up. We were the 13th floor, and as you were getting up to like the 10th, 11th floor, you could hear the people in our lounge chanting. They called me Bobby on the dorm floor, and so they were chanting BOBBIE, BOBBIE, and I was like, oh my God, I do not want to get out on this floor, because I knew what that was going to be about. That was some kind of an experience right there. That was a little trip down memory lane. Hope I didn't put everybody to sleep. Continue with the games here. So marquee game of the weekend, for any number of reasons, is you got at noon Eastern, the dreaded 11 a.m. start. You guys hate that. I don't mind it so much myself, as just watching as a fan, but I'm sure the people attending games, it sucks. But Texas, Oklahoma, the Red River Shootout. Fuck this Red River rivalry nonsense. It's the Red River Shootout. If you can't handle us saying shootout, if that offends somebody, yeah, please, come on. Please. So anyway, Texas OU, the annual rivalry. Texas, who we thought was back, it turns out they're back. The shit show, that the carnival, the absolute carnival circus atmosphere that is Texas, the Texas football program right now. That they're back. All right. We saw that in action last weekend in Stillwater. The fan implosion has already begun. It's really something else. And honest God's truth, OU right now is just they're borderline in that area. Just for the fact that the fans aren't happy. Team's definitely off to a rough start. Lost that opener badly to Houston. Lost badly to Ohio State. It's hasn't been great. They took care of business against TCU. I don't want to say they made it look easy. They had to work, but I don't know. This game, there is absolutely no telling what's going to happen with this game. OU's defense is shredded with injuries. Not looking great to begin with. Texas offense, you know what you're going to get. If you can keep Buechele in situations where you aren't depending on his arm to win the game, you're better. You're better off. If Texas can keep themselves into a lot of situations where they can trot swoops out there, they could have success and control the clock a lot. Defensively, they just don't play with any intensity. And the biggest problem is they're liable to show up. If they show up, if that defense shows up with intensity, they're incredible. They're big. They're fast. I mean, if they show up with any intensity, I think they beat OU again. I would not be shocked at all if they beat OU again. If Texas can show up, if they show up with any intensity, they show up like they did last year. OU sleepwalking, and Texas comes in, screw it, they're ready to play because it's OU. Texas could definitely win, and if Texas wins, Bob Stoops' seat is boiling. His seat is boiling. 3 losses. You're at the beginning of October, and you've already got 3 losses. 1 to Houston. You can say what you want. Okay, Houston's a really good football team. They're not a Power 5 conference team. And Texas sucks. Okay? As it turns out, Notre Dame sucks, folks. So guess what? OU loses to Texas. Bob Stoops' seat is going to be boiling hot. They will implode like you have not ever seen them implode. Texas, on the other hand, is kind of already imploding. Even if they win, I'm not so sure what a big deal that's going to be. If they lose, I wouldn't be shocked to see Charlie Strong get fired in the middle of the year. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I think that's going to be a fascinating game. fascinating. It could be extremely entertaining just to watch on Twitter to see how all the people react, the fans react. So what you got? You got both teams coming in 2-2. Texas won the conference. OU's 1-0. You have 484 tickets available on StubHub, starting at $241. So pricey. You got to make a serious decision if you're just going to show up and buy a ticket. The line, OU's given 11.5, and the over/under is 73. That is a lot of. Think about this, man. The over/under for the Kansas game. Over/under for the Kansas game is with TCU is 64. Okay, so you're looking at over/under for Texas Oklahoma is 73. You just think about that. That's like 38-35. Okay, that's a decent amount of points. Could you see that happening? Yeah, you could see that happening. I don't know that I don't know. I actually the over might not be a bad bet here. I can tell you right now, I wouldn't touch Oklahoma in an 11.5 for nothing. I think this is a complete crapshoot of a game. Texas will show up for this game. I'm telling you, after getting whipped a little bit up in Stillwater, I think they'll show up a bit for this game. No question in my mind. And it's so hard to tell what's going to happen with OU. Stoops and his staff have the ability to really throw these huge clunkers in, where the team just comes out like, not that they're not prepared. They're not. It's not that they're not prepared to play. They practice, but it's like they come out and they just mentally don't give a shit. So I don't know. I think 11.5 is a lot. I don't think OU is going to run all over them. I think Texas will come out fired up, and I could be totally wrong. Who the hell knows? But again, 12 Eastern, that game again is on ESPNU. So 3 games. So you've got a lot going on here on ESPNU. It's really essentially the entire day, if you think about it, giving you the next game. Because you've got the 12 o'clock game Eastern, Texas and OU, which is going to be then followed up by Iowa State at Oklahoma State at 3:30 Eastern. And then that's closed. You close the evening with the 7 o'clock game, Tech at Kansas State, all on ESPNU. Or no, you know what? I take that back. I can't read either. I take that all back. Your 12 o'clock game is TCU Kansas on ESPNU. The Texas Oklahoma game is going to be on FS1, Fox Sports 1, which that actually sounds like makes a little more sense because Fox would want the marquee game. So yeah, definitely interesting game. Fox Sports 1, noon Eastern. TCU Kansas at noon Eastern on ESPNU. Then you got the afternoon game. So it's a good layout. You got a full day of Big 12 games. The afternoon game, 3:30 Eastern, all by itself. Iowa State at Oklahoma State. Oh, fucking Iowa State. You had an opportunity. You had with me. I don't know about a lot of OSU fans. You had an opportunity last week to, absolve yourself of one of the most evil events. Evil upset. That was just an evil upset. It's one thing if you had upset, Alabama. Okay. Alabama's back the next year and the year after that, or Ohio State or somebody like that. To upset Oklahoma State, that still makes me ill to think. I remember sitting upstairs in my living room, just being ill, just sick to my stomach. For that, with the tragedy right before that was, Iowa State, you could not have picked a worse game to decide you're going to show up and upset somebody. Be that as it may, you had a chance last weekend. It was right there in your grasp. There were a lot of OSU fans, not everybody. There were a lot of OSU fans that would have absolved you. That would have been absolution if you had picked off Baylor and you couldn't do it. You shit the bed in the fourth quarter. You had it, and you absolutely threw it away. Turd blossoms. God. So you know what? I hope that the backup QB, Oklahoma State's backup QB, is in the third quarter because the score is just so ridiculously out of hand. You know, you usually get run out of the joint when you come to Stillwater, but you better not come down here and fuck something up in Stillwater. All right? Come down here, take your ass whooping, go home, go back to Ames. I like Matt Campbell. I think he's a good hire. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do shit in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, USA. Very different. Recruiting makes a big difference in this stuff. You really want to, you know, have a little better operation, and we'll see if he can bring in some players or at least instill a system that, you know, kind of like Snyder, you know, where you kind of make something out of nothing. But I think OSU gets after this one. This is OSU's laying 17 points. I don't think that's nearly enough. Over under 67. You know, 47-20. Okay, that's kind of close. But I think OSU definitely wins. I mean, OSU should win this game by 20 plus in my mind, without question. If they don't, it's like, what the fuck? Iowa State's defense is terrible. Their offense is one-dimensional to some extent, and Oklahoma State should be able to deal with the running game. Now, OSU's had a little trouble on the edges with the running game, and I think that's where probably Iowa State will go after them. But up the middle, Oklahoma State should be able to deal with that. All right, should be able to deal with that. They dealt with it last week with Texas in the second half once they kind of got their crap together. I mean, I think it's interesting. Glenn Spencer's in the booth. It's going to be very interesting to see how that works. 2 weeks in a row, week 2 of Spencer in the booth upstairs. But OSU should come out, should win this game. They should win this game easily. Over-under's a little touchy, but I wouldn't have a problem laying the 17 points at all. You got 1,132 tickets available on StubHub starting at $20. A lot of seats there. $20. Come on, folks. Fill the joint up. Basketball, by the way, Saturday, don't forget, you got to open practice. Basketball, Underwood's having an open practice for the Cowboys. So I'm really excited to hear about that. Obviously can't be there, but I'm really excited to hear about that. Maybe a couple folks snapping some video, posting some video on online. So I'm very eager. I'm anxious. I'm really anxious to see. And I've had this conversation before, that I don't know talent-wise how much different this team is going to be than the team last year. I don't know that from just a talent perspective that you'd look at and go, wow, these guys are so much more talented this year. But I think from a coaching standpoint, if Underwood's the real deal, this group should just look different on the court. They should just look different. They should move different. It should look like a different animal than we saw last year. So I'm definitely really anxious to see the reports, maybe get some videos of what goes on Saturday. I think if you've got a chance to go to that, you really should, because this is the first time we've had in a while to be excited. I think Underwood was definitely a great hire. And listen, I was one of those folks kind of on the Gottlieb wagon a little bit. But I wasn't on the anti-Gottlieb wagon, let's put it that way. Underwood, though, good hire, seems to have the right mentality, and I'm excited. I can't wait for basketball to start. That's it's been a while since I've been able to feel like I've been able to say that. So anyway, there you have it. Picks from Joe's is back. Going to be on the road next week, meaning I'm going to be traveling Thursday night. So probably we'll do this on Wednesday night if I can pull that off while I'm on the road. And hopefully we'll not be alone. I'm sure it's more entertaining to have a couple other folks here and get some insight other than just mine, and maybe stories other than just mine. Anyway, everybody have a great night. If you're traveling for the game, travel safe, enjoy, and good luck with your trips, and enjoy the tailgating, and go Pokes. Beat the shit out of friggin' Iowa State. Have a good night, everybody.